Okay. So we've got a couple minutes. I don't want to start too early in case somebody's going to join us here in a little bit. Yeah, but
does that make it bigger?
No, I could do it on the original screen, but I can't do it here. Yes, I know. I just tried.
Yeah, I know. I'm just looking. See if there's a way to make it bigger.
So,
yeah, that's off the.
well, I'm known for being 10 minutes early or thinking I'm late if I'm not, and we're only a minute early. I've done really well in holding off here. So we'll go ahead and begin meeting for worship. Looks like I am host as well as worship leader this morning. I don't know of any announcements that need to be made. Are there joys and concerns that people would like to share?
I have power.
That's a joy.
Yes.
I have a birthday today.
You
Happy
do.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Hey.
Thank you.
I would like to share with you about a family concern. Some of you have been with us long enough to remember that we were asking for prayers for our great niece, Maggie, who had the same kind of cancer that Steve does. She's fine. Yeah, but her older sister is having heart problems. They think that's what the problem is. And so they have had to come back from Peru, where they are missionaries, to get medical care for her. She's 15. Her name's Lucy. And right now she's wearing a heart monitor to see if that is a part of the problem. If they find out that it is exacerbated by heat and humidity, they may not be able to go back to Peru. So there are all kinds of factors involved that could use our prayers. So if you would hold Lucy and her family in your thoughts and prayers, I would really appreciate it. And I know they would too. Are there other concerns?
Well, we need to certainly keep the Middle East in our prayers. I happened to turn the TV on last evening and saw that we had bombed 3 nuclear plants in Iran last evening or sometime yesterday. So
Unprovoked.
Yes. Well, if there are no other joys and concerns to share, I would encourage you to mute yourself so we don't get feedback. I'm the worship leader, and I will speak out of the silence here in just a little bit. Well, if you've read Friendly Notes lately, you know that I've been thinking a lot about one of my favorite Bible passages, which is Matthew 6:25-34. And I want to read that to you right now. This is comes from the Common English Bible. Therefore, I say to you, don't worry about your life, what you'll eat or what you'll drink, or about your body, what you'll wear. Isn't life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds in the sky. They don't sow seed or harvest grain or gather crops into barns. Yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more, much more than they are? Who among you by worrying can add a single moment to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? Notice how the lilies in the field grow. They don't wear themselves out with work, and they don't spin cloth. But I say to you that even Solomon in all his splendor wasn't dressed like one of these. If God dresses grass in the field so beautifully, even though it's alive today and tomorrow it's thrown into the furnace, won't God do more for you, you people of weak faith? Therefore, don't worry and say, what are we going to eat? Or what are we going to drink? Or what are we going to wear? Gentiles long for all these things. Your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Instead, desire first and foremost God's kingdom and God's righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, stop worrying about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. There's so much in that passage. There are words of comfort, caring concern, gentle chiding, and reassurance, among others. Underlying the entire passage are words encouraging us to trust the Creator of the universe, who made us and loves us more than our human imaginations can comprehend. Trust that our needs will be met, often in better ways than we could have imagined. I don't know about you, but trusting God is a continuing theme in my life. On the one hand, I tend to trust people until they prove to me that my trust is misplaced. But on the other hand, trusting God to provide for my every need is a challenge. Even though, in retrospect, I can clearly see places in my life where God has been most faithful about taking care of me when I needed it. Oftentimes, I was even aware that God was carrying me at the time. But each time I come to a place in my journey now, I find that I find I need an extra measure of God's assistance. I still struggle to let go and let God, as the old saying goes. I sometimes find it helpful in my prayer life to visualize my prayers. So when I'm holding a particular situation in God's life, I picture literally holding it in my hand and then opening my fingers to allow my concern to float up to God. This part I can do fairly well. My challenge comes in leaving my concerns with God. I want to grab them back and continue wrestling with them. The dictionary says that trust and faith are synonymous, and we do often use the words that way. So Jesus is telling us, have faith in me and my abiding care, and also trust me to take care of you. I can't tell you what that should look like in your life, but I know it means I need to let go of excessive planning for future events that probably won't happen anyway, and trust God to provide for my every need, just as I know God has done in the past. I've chosen to play hymns that are listed under the trust heading in the subject index of our Sing Joyfully hymnal this morning. While I do that, I hope you will spend time offering your concerns to God and allowing God to give you peace of mind and the assurance that God will meet those needs as they arise in ways more wonderful and wise than you could imagine. I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot to turn the music thing on, and I don't know where it is now because Could you hear me start to play? I'm sorry. Can somebody tell me? No. Oh, rats. The one thing I needed to do. Here we go. We've reached that time in our worship service where some of us need to go for other responsibilities. We wish you all Godspeed and hope to see you next week. And those of us who can will remain in open worship for a while longer.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Really enjoyed the music.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and thanks for sending out the page numbers and the words.
Thanks, Lynn.
Welcome.
It's kind of hard not to worry these days because there's so much going on. And but I'd like to share that I read an article this morning about something called doom scrolling. And I think it said a lot to me about the fact that a lot of my worrying about the state of affairs in the world and in the United States is exasperated by just continually scrolling through the internet and reading all these articles, and then you begin to question, is this true? Is this not true? And then it sends you down a rabbit trail to, try to make sure that everything is that you're being told is, not totally made up news. And so you end up just spending so much time on the internet just trying to verify something you've just read, and you get off on different rabbit trails. And so this article, it was from the Mayo Clinic, and said, what can you do to prevent from doom scrolling? And said it's natural to do that because anything that you pursue with your mind, your brain craves novelty, and the media just wants to grab us and hold us. And so it said, how can you check that? And one thing that spoke to me deeply was that it said every few minutes that you're on the internet, ask yourself, is this serving a purpose for me? And if it's nothing but mindless scrolling, it's just wasting time. Before you know it, you spend an hour just looking at every news article you can find. But just check yourself every 5 or 10 minutes and say, is this serving a purpose to me? And it made me think this morning about how, as Quakers, we like to keep everything simple and not overloaded and everything, but yet I tend to get overloaded with information. And it's not always news. It can be just something I enjoy reading, but I just seek out more and more and more. It's like, why do I want to know all this information? It's just information. It's just, and so I told my husband this morning, first thing I said, I'm just going to try to just not spend so much time on the internet, even if I think it's a worthy cause that I'm spending time on the internet. And so that's just more or less try to, because it does create that worrisome sense.
Well, as Brent likes to say, if all hearts are clear, we can bring meeting to a close. Thanks for your words, Twinette. You're right. Doom scrolling is a rabbit hole that we probably all fall down quite frequently, and I find my ability to trust in God is in inverse relationship to the amount of time I spend doom scrolling. So that's a very timely reminder. Thank you.
Everyone has a great week.
I really enjoyed the music this morning. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Twinette.
I followed along with all the text.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good week, everyone.
Take care.
I've got to figure out how to stop the recording here. Let's see here. There we go.